Huh? Not listening. Good? No. But anyways, it's fine. Okay. First of all, I wanted to talk about the Geula. Everyone's talking about the Geula lately. There's all kinds of things that people are saying about the Geula. So I want to start off with saying over from my father Zatzal. He always used to say, Moshiach kommt nicht. And everybody would say, how could you say Moshiach kommt nicht? Terrible thing to say. He used to say it, there's a certain group that people know of. They always are screaming all day long, we want Moshiach now. He says, Moshiach kommt nicht. Nur was? Wir dürfen ihn bringen. He doesn't come on his own. We have to bring him. What does it mean we have to bring him? From Am Maisim, we are ma'orer upstairs that we should bring the Geula. So what do we have to do? So of course everybody knows, you have Torah, Avodah, Yer Shemayim, alle gute Sachen. But what's the extra step that we have to take? So I want to say over a Maisa from the Kaatzcä. I don't know if I could say over Chassidish Maisas, but the Kaatzcä everybody knows of. The Maisa is like this. It was a Yid who was a very, very big ani. He had no money. And came to the Kaatzcä and he says, make a chasana, I don't have a penny. I need you to write me a letter that I'm going to go to a certain gavir and I'm going to show him your letter. And with that letter, so what they call a hamlatza, and you see everybody walking around with letters, from Rabbanim to say that they're legit and that they should please, you should please give them money. So the Kaatzcä took his time and he wrote him a beautiful hamlatza. And the Kaatzcä, he had this minhag that he was very, very medactic in his lashon. He didn't stam, as I say, write things. People know all his sharfa verta, everybody heard good lines from him, but he was very medactic in his lashon. He didn't stam say things. Anyways, so he wrote a beautiful letter, and then this ani, he didn't live near the Kaatzcä, he had to travel far to get to him. And then, so the Kaatzcä told him, you should go to this and this gavir, who was known to be a tremendous gavir, and he should show him the letter. So he traveled for 2 weeks and he got to this gavir's house. And he says that he has a letter from the Kaatzcä, and this gavir was a big chassid of the Kaatzcä. So he said, let me see the letter. So he showed him the letter, and he's looking at it and staring at it and reading it. And not only did he read the words, what's written, but he also had to read the words that weren't written. Then he says to the ani, stay here for 1 minute. And then he goes into his money room, and he comes back, and he gives the ani 1 ruble. And the ani looks, and says, for this, I needed a letter from the Kaatzcä. I had to travel 2 weeks to get to the Kaatzcä and 2 weeks to get back. This is what I needed. The Baal Boss didn't tell him anything. He says, this is what you're getting, end of story. So he took the ruble and then he left. And the way back, he's thinking and thinking, nothing made any sense. Kaatzcä wrote a letter, he should get 1 ruble, doesn't make sense. And he had to travel so much, his traveling cost more than the ruble, nothing made any sense. And then while he's on the wagon on the way home, so he's out davening b'chol koichos. He's davening as hard as he can to the Rebbeinu Shloim. Please, I have to make a chasana and I don't have any money for anything and I don't know what's going on. And please help me with mamish davening. He said, Rebbeinu Shloim, these are the words that work. For myself, I already can't do anything. The only one who could do now, I'm putting myself in your hands. You're the only one who could do it. Right? And he continued on his way home. He stopped off in a city and he was spending the night in a hotel, or motel, whatever it was, or inn. You talk about old stories, right? You can't say motel. So anyways, he's staying there. Somebody comes over to him. He gets a message that the gavir wants him to come back. So the guy took him back. He goes back to the gavir, and the gavir says, let me explain to you what happened. He says, the Kaatzcä wrote me a letter. And he wrote me in the letter that not only do you not have money, but you have other tsaras as well. This is not written in the letter, but is written between the lines of the letter. And you have all these tsaras because you don't have 100% emunah bitachon. You're a little bit lacking. So therefore, my understanding was that I should give you just a tiny bit, and then you're going to have such charata, you're going to daven to Hashem as hard as you can, and then the Rebbeinu Shalom will answer your tefillas. And then Gavir went into his room, and he gave him thousands of golden coins, or whatever it was, and he had enough money, not only for the chasna, but to live the rest of his life. What do we see from that? We see from there that when a person needs something, so you daven to the Rebbeinu Shalom, but it can't be stam, Hashem, please help me. It has to be that all my koiches are hevel v'rik, worthless. Manage was, if I put all my koiches, and I'm soymech on the Rebbeinu Shalom 1,000%, then he will answer me. The answer might be no, but he will answer me. This is what I wanted to get to was coming to Pesach, and Pesach is the Geula. And what do we have to do on Pesach to bring about the Geula? So it's brought down in Sfarim Kedoshim that we see that in order to bring a Geula, there's two types of a Geula. There's a personal Geula. If a person has tzaras, so he needs a Geula. And then there's a Geula for Klal Yisrael. Klal Yisrael is almost permanently in tzaras. I mean, you could just see what's tutzach in the Welt. The whole world is against the Yidden. It's not even just the Eretz Yisrael. It's Yidden in general. So, what do we have to do in order to bring about the Geula? So we have to have this extra dose of emunah bitachon. So just to tell you a little bit that everything, as we know, is written in the Torah, and we see from Yaakov Avinu had tzaros, and he went to a certain place, and the pasuk says, "Vayikra Mokeh Mahu Gal Eid." What's Gal Eid? He gave it a name. What does it mean, Gal Eid? So I want to explain to you what Gal Eid means, and it's a very simple taich, and it also is a reference to Lag BaOmer. You know that Hashem created the world with Midas Hadin. How do you know that? Because it says in the pasuk, "Bereshis bara Elokim." The name Elokim is taich Midas Hadin. Why is that called Midas Hadin? Simply because Rebbeinu Shalom himself has no boundaries. He's what we call Insof. No boundaries. Infinity. Not there's really a taich word for it, but there's no boundaries. When the world was created, it's a physical world. Every person has boundaries, right? Crazy, 6 feet tall, 150 pounds, or whatever it is. That's your boundary. Every person, the whole world is created with boundaries. Rebbeinu Shalom has no boundaries. So when he created a physical world, it's Bereshis bara with the name Elokim. Now the name Elokim represents din. That's how it is. So we have to, Chazal tell us that there is a way through our kavanas that we could take that din and make it into a sweet thing. How do we do that? So the name Elokim is, how is it spelled? Aleph, Lamed, Hey, Yud, Mem. Right? Now, the rule is with the Aleph base that as you go back each letter to the beginning, towards the Aleph, it's closer to the Rebbeinu Shalom. Anything that's closer to Hashem is a reference to what we call Chesed Elyon, is a Nahaya Madrega. So you take the Aleph, go back one ice. You can't, right? So it stays a Aleph. Then you go to the next ice, which is Lamed. That you turn into a Chaf, right? The next one is a Hey. You go back one and turns into a Dalet. Next one is a Yud. You go back one, it turns into a Tes, right? And the last one is an Endamem. You go back one, it becomes a regular Mem, right? But you can't have a regular Mem at the end of a word. So then it goes back and it stays an Endamem. So if you have the 5 letters in that name of Elokim, so the Aleph, which is the first one, and the Mem, which is the last one, don't change. They stay the way they are. But the 3 middle ones, which is a Chaf, a tes and a dalit. That's they switched over. Right, the lamed became a chaf again, and the hey became a dalit, and the yud became a tes. What's the gematria of chaf, dalit, tes? Since no, like you guys don't go to English, it's fine. It's 33. Right? What's 33? 33 we know is Lag BaOmer. So you see that in the whole Yemei HaSfira, every day was a Midas Hadin. Talmidei Rabbi Akiva were mace, but that day of Lag BaOmer they weren't mace, because on that day things turned over to a Midas HaChesed. What do we see also? That the word Geula and the word Golus both have in them that Gimel Amid, which is representative of a Midas HaChesed. So then it's going to be dependent in our Maisa Tachtonim. If we behave, so it'll be Geula, right? If we don't do Maisa that Rabbeinu Shalom wants, then it'll be Golus, right? You also see that Geula has the Aleph in it, which is the most Chesed of all the Isis in the Aleph base. And Golus ends off with a Taf. A Taf is the most din in the entire Aleph base. Why? Because it's the end. It represents din, which is ending, no more. So you see the Golus and the Geula have the same shirish, and it's all totally in Ma'aser Tachtonim. It's totally in that extra dose of bitachon that we do, or we don't do. So if we do, then we could be zeicher to Geula. If we don't do it, then Chas v'Shalom we may not be zeicher to it. I started off saying, quote, Vayikra Mokeh Mahu Gal Eid, because Yaakov had a big Yeshua at that time, so he called it Gal Eid. So the Gimel Lamed, I explained to you what it was, right? That's the two Isis that represent a sweetening of the din. What about the Ayin Dalid? Gal Eid. So Elikim, if you take the way it is Gematria 86. But if you take this shame that we switched the letters to, which was the Aleph, Dalit, Chaf, Tes, Mem, the Gematria of that is Ayin Dalit. So Yaakov was showing you that it's Eid is 74. So you see that from Yaakov Avinu, he called it Gal Eid, showing that he had a Nes, Ba'asei Makoim, and the Midas Hadin that normally may have come in that place, now became a Midas HaChesed. So now we come to Pesach. What happened on Pesach? On Pesach, we went from Golus Mitzrayim, which was the most din, right? With a tremendous amount of din. Why did it have to happen? I'm not going to go into it right now, but there were neshamas that were not proper. They came from Adam Harishon, from a chet of Adam Harishon. Those neshamas came, and we had to, so to speak, clean out those neshamas. And by Yetzias Mitzrayim, so only the ones who were roi were the ones who came out of Mitzrayim. Now when we sit by the Seder, so what are we going to do? We have 4 kaises and 3 matzahs, right? So the 4 kaises, a kais is, who knows, could tell me what's the gematria of kais? It's 86. What's the gematria of Elikim? It's also 86. Seemingly, right, it's a Midas Hadin the kais, right? But how do you hold a kais? With your hand, right? How many fingers on your hand? 5. So there is a rule called, without going into the detail, it's called Chamisha Chasadim. There are 5 midas of Chesed, which we are applying to this kais, which represents din, right? And we turn it, we are able to sweeten the din by holding it up and making kiddush on it. And then we do the other Birchas Hayayin on it. Lechem doesn't have that issue, because Lechem is Gematria Chayim. Right? How much is Lechem? 68. How much is Chayim? 68. So when we eat the Lechem, there's no din in the Lechem. The Yayin, why is it that way? Because Lechem is just bread. doesn't go sour, right? However, even though there's a thing of sa'ur shebe'isa, which I'm not going into right now, but the lechem as it is now, once it's baked, there's no more sa'ur shebe'isa, right? But yayin, right? There's yayin hamisameach, and there's yayin hamishakeh, right? And also, if you make wine, as you know, there's what we call shmarei hayayin. When you squeeze the grapes, so there's little sediment. So that sediment is what's called the bad part of the wine. And the clear part, which is the part that we drink, or the part that goes on the mizbeach, that's called yayin hamisameach. So you see that the difference between the yayin hamisameach and the yayin hamishaker is very, very little. And so too you see by Golus and Geula, the difference is also, could be kechut hasayra. So therefore, when we do a mitzvah, learning is all good, but you have to have kavanah in the mitzvah. If you have proper kavanah in the mitzvah, that it should be taka l'shem shemayim, and that you're not learning that other people should see you learning and think you're a masmid or a great balkishrin or whatever it is. You're learning strictly because I'm a Eved Hashem and I'm doing whatever I'm supposed to be doing. So with such a kavanah, and it's taka meant l'shem shemayim, with that we could be zeicher to geula shalema. Shkayach.